I'm Michael Bain, and welcome to Triggered. Coming to you as always from the secret hidden bunker in the Rocky Mountains. This is one of our shooting ranges here, and brought to you by Midway USA, just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Today I want to show you what almost amounts to a time machine. Take a look at this guy. This is from our friends at ARMSCOR, and it is, you'll notice it's a revolver, not a 1911. It is an AL-22M, an 8-shot stainless steel 22 Magnum revolver. Now, it was made in the Czech Republic. Martin Tuasen went over, worked with him on this gun, and finally brought this revolver into the United States. And I really like it because it reminds me of the old K-22s. Remember that? The old K-frame Smith & Wesson 22 long rifle revolvers. When I was growing up, they were the Ne Plus Ultra. If you wanted a super accurate 22 pistol, you would buy a K-22 revolver. Well, this frame is roughly what we would call a Smith & Wesson K-frame size, a mid-frame size, to distinguish it from one of the snubbies, the J-frame size, or the N as we go up into the larger calibers. But here's a lot of things about this gun that are done very, very well. These grips, this is something that Martin Tuasen mentioned to me. He said, hey, when you get the revolver, check out the grips. He goes, I wanted the grips exactly like I wanted the grips. And this is one of the useful things when you have executives that actually shoot. So what we have here are a rubber compound grip with this sort of raised stippling. At first I thought, but I found exactly that. When you start clamping down on this gun, the stippling works really well. It's not as if the 22 Magnum recoil is going to launch this gun off into space, obviously. But one of the things I see for this particular gun is this not a great trail gun if you're going to have a chance to hunt small game, hunt rabbits, hunt squirrels, you're set upon by an anaconda, any of those things, this gun will take care of. The other thing I like about it is, and this sounds really kind of silly, it's pretty. It's pretty. It has classic lines. And to me, that makes a big, big difference. Obviously, you got red insert front sight here. Now, that would have been really common when I was growing up or in the 60s. Now, we don't see it so much, but you know what? It works. Adjustable rear sights, just like you're familiar with some of the other revolvers. So what you have here is a really good sight picture, a really good set of grips, a really good trigger pull. To me, on a revolver like this, the reason I'm interested in the single action trigger pull, because I know you've heard me say, if you got a double action revolver, shoot it double action. Because of the role I see this gun, the primary role as a hunting gun, from my standpoint, I want that trigger pull to be as good as it can get. And this is a really excellent single action trigger pull. Let's talk a little bit about 22 Magnum, which I never gave the slightest thought to for years. Partly because I never had any guns in it, and partly because it has sort of been shrinking in influence, and then all of a sudden it has come roaring back. What caused it to shrink in influence was a lot of people wanted to take 22 rifles and build them in 22 Magnum and just, kind of port it over. And it turns out that it doesn't actually work that way. You have to do a little redesign work to get that 22 Magnum. Or when Kel-Tec bought out their own gun in 22 Magnum, the semi-auto, and then Rock Island, ARMSCOR brought out what amounts to a Target 22 Magnum on their 1911 frame, you started seeing more interest. Some of that interest is self-defense. Because the idea that a 22 Magnum, lots of 22 Magnums, can make a profound difference if you're using this gun as a house gun to protect yourself. So as I said, you have 8 shots. Well, I'll show you a couple of rounds. ARMSCOR makes a 40 grain jacketed hollow point. This, if I was walking the woods with this to hunt something, if I wanted to slay the dread bunny, this is exactly what I would use to slay the dread bunny. And I've certainly used 22 long rifle hollow points to slay the dread bunny many, many times. But this is from ARMSCOR. It's a 40 grain hollow point. One of the things that's really helped in terms of raising the visibility of the .22 Magnum as a potential self-defense pistol are these Hornady Critical Defense .22 Magnum. Now, if you take a look at these guys, they're 42 grain, 45 grain, and they have a typical FTX Hornady bullet. That is, it's hard to see in there, but there's a little polymer insert. And the idea of that polymer insert is when this bullet hits, the polymer insert forces out the petals. So a dedicated self-defense ammunition, there's a couple of other ones, because if you have hand problems, if you have, oh gosh, older relatives, a lot of times we think, oh, hand problems. But I can assure you, after 500,000 rounds through a pistol over the last 30 years, my hand knows when it's going to rain. I'm not saying that a .22 Magnum is the best self-defense cartridge in the world. Far from it. However, if it's what you got, if you have somebody in your family that's a little recoil shy or has issues with their hands, well, an 8-shot .22 Magnum revolver is a really valid choice. And I'd like to quote my friend, the late Walt Roush, my mentor, in so very many things. Walt once said to me, we were talking about which caliber is good for self-defense, which one isn't, and Walt said, nobody wants to leak. They don't care about the size of the hole. We'll be right back with more from Triggered in just a moment.
The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. It's true, you can't avoid the struggle. It's coming. But you can control your precision. It's time to put it all on the line. Because with Crimson Trace Optics, failure is not an option.
Welcome back to Triggered, brought to you by Midway USA. And in this segment, I'm going to actually whine a little, okay? I've been competing for decades. First started shooting bullseye, IDPA, USPSA, IPSC, Cowboy, fill in the blank, 3-gun. And I've had pretty good luck as a competitor. However, let me show you my nemesis. My nemesis is ICOR, the Independent Congress of Revolver Enthusiasts. Every time I shoot an ICOR match, things fall apart in my hand. And let me go back a few years to an ICOR World Championship in Morro Bay in California. We were filming it for Shooting Gallery. We had 2 videographers, a sound guy, a director. It was a really big deal. And I've been working with this gun without the electronic sight, but I've been working with this Ruger GP100 6-inch for 4 months. And it ran like a top. And it just drove tacks. Great gun. So I had one last 1,000-round box of ammunition. It's 38 .357. I had 38 special match loads. So I shot 500 of that lot. Why would I do that? To make sure everything worked. And everything worked perfectly. I get to California, it's stage 1, all the cameras are set up, the director's there, all these things are going on, there's big light panels everywhere. The buzzer goes off, I bring this gun up, and the gun goes click. And then it goes click, 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 click. Since I'm on a time pressure, I go, I reload, I put in more bullets, I put the gun up, it goes bang. I said, okay, maybe it was karma. Then it goes click, 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 bang. Anyway, I went through the entire World Championships, getting about 3 shots off per cylinder. I looked at the gun, took it apart. Randy Lee from Apex Tactical, who's one of the great master revolver guys in the country, he's like, let me look at it. And he took it apart and he goes, I don't see what's wrong with it. So that was a great show. I came home though, and I opened up this gun, and I threw out pretty much every moving part. Certainly every spring in it I tossed. And I resprung it, tried it out on the range with hard primers, seemed to work fine. So this was going to be a competition gun. Well, in 2019, Ruger rolled out this guy. This is the GP100, Super GP100, 8-shot 9mm. And I said, whoa, whoa. this is a great gun. I was talking to Dave Alasso, who is on Team Ruger, who is one of their revolver masters, and he goes, yeah, I had a lot of design work into this gun. It is a super competition gun. So I got it, shot it some, maybe put 100 rounds through it, not much, and then found out that I couldn't get a mount for this particular gun because it was betwixt and between. So I went to the cylinder and slide shop to have a mount machined in so I could put a dot sight on it. And then I came back, I was all ready to go, and COVID happened. All the matches went away. I think I signed up for 3 national I-Corps matches, all were canceled. Local matches were canceled. I didn't think anything about it until about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And then a friend of mine sent me an email and said, hey, Colorado I-Corps championships. You probably haven't shot a revolver in 4 years? Perfect, perfect for you to sign up. So I did. I signed up in open. I put a dot sight on this. I said, okay, I took it right down to the range. We've got lots of moon clips, and look at that. What is not happening here? Double action doesn't work. It works sometimes. Normally, that's a short stroke. If you short stroke a trigger and you start pulling back, like right about there, it locks up. And so the first thing I thought was I must be short stroking the trigger. So I went inside, cleared it out, dry fired it, and said, okay, let's focus on this. Focus on pull, release, pull, release, pull, release, pull, release. And about every 20 pulls, the gun seized up. And what was worse, when it seized up as the way you saw it seize up, it didn't release automatically when I let go of the trigger. It's screwed up. I have no idea how, why, what. If I had more time and more sense, I would do the same thing to this gun that I did to this gun. And that's throw away every single internal moving part. Throw out all the springs, throw out everything inside the gun and start from A. And I probably will do that in the future. This is a really nice gun. This is number 1, 0001 Super GP100. What it is probably minor. If you ask me to bet, I would bet on the recoil spring that allows the trigger to go back forward is too light. And what happens is it's not pushing it back the way it should. But anyhow, I'm back to my backup gun. And it now has a Trijicon SRO, great competition sight on it. I've got enough 38 special to practice a little and shoot the match. So I tell you what, we'll let you know how it ends up. We'll be right back. This week's Trigger is brought to you by Midway USA. Just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Taurus USA, designed to protect. Rock Island ARMSCOR, solid as a rock. And Franklin Armory, making some of the most innovative guns in America. Welcome back to Trigger, brought to you by Midway USA. Remember, a few weeks back, we went to Tom Given's tactical conference, TACCON, down in Texas. And I told you that we did a lot of interviews with people and we would be sort of trickling them out over the next few months. Claude Werner is a good friend of mine, used to be an instructor for Bill Rogers at the Rogers Shooting School, the toughest shooting school in the country, and is known generically, I guess, as the tactical professor. And that's because Claude thinks about self-defense issues. He thinks about training, he thinks about what you need to be doing. So let's go to Claude and find out what we all should be doing. Let's talk about the world we live in now in 2021 versus what we lived in 12 months ago.
I'd say that the landscape, the environment we live in is radically different than it was before, whatever we want to call this virus thing. A lot of things, and not all of it relates to the pandemic itself, but there have been political and sociological changes that have been fomenting in America for several years, and it's just changing now. And as you and I were just talking about, that's reality. And one of the things that I'm a big believer in is I don't lie to myself, and I always try to think about reality.
But most people don't, because reality is fairly painful, reasonably painful to people. But if you're going to be carrying a gun, it makes sense to me that you might be able to see the world as it is, or you should be able to see the world as it is, because you're going to have to make serious decisions.
Yeah, and the decision-making process is something that I've gotten intensely interested in. Just over the course of, well, it started 7 years ago when I started looking at negative outcomes. But in the past year, as I've done a lot more research from Colonel John Boyd and Dr. Gary Klein and others who are eminent in that field, just how that decision-making process is important. But the decision-making process is always loaded with underlying assumptions that we have to make, and that we have to think about how does our decision affect us in that environment. And when the environment changes, sometimes that means the decisions change as well.
One thing you and I talked about earlier is that for the first time in our lifetimes, we see what amounts to politically sanctioned violence. That violence across the country that is acceptable to the current ruling party.
Mm-hmm.
We have, Central America's dealt with that their entire existence, but we haven't. How do you think that changes things when we're looking at a level of violence that's sanctioned?
I think when we're talking about that kind of violence, it means that we have to really be on our game about some things that we've talked about for years. John Farnham's stupid places, stupid people, stupid things. And, it used to be that we could get away with maybe ignoring one of those. It's sort of like Cooper's 4 rules. In a lot of cases, if we ignore one of them, we could still get away. We might be kind of embarrassed by the outcome, but it's not necessarily so bad. But when you have a tolerance stack up where you have multiple violations, then you don't get away with it anymore. Well, that's the way stupid people, stupid places, stupid things used to be, that maybe we could get away with 2 of them, but not all 3. Now, we really can't get away with even 1. We've got to be on our game. We've got to accept the reality. And I think in a lot of cases, we've got to swallow our pride and just say, I'm not going there. And you can't make me. And when I say you, that means family and friends and people that you might just have to say, look, we're not going there. That's all. Maybe you'll be angry about that because you wanted to see that show or whatever the case may be, but we're just not doing that because something is brewing. And that something is brewing might just be something that's in your gut. I read one thing this morning, or I heard one thing, and so we're just not doing that. And I think we're going to have to step up our game and improve our decision making and realize that we just no longer can get away with stupid decisions.
Okay, kids, that is it for this week. Hopefully next week, another one of my NDA, non-disclosure agreements, actually opens up and we'll show you yet another new gun. But right now I'm looking around and everything is so green. That is so cool. I haven't seen Colorado this green in years, so we're pretty happy with it. As always, we're brought to you by Midway USA, just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. And Midway is offering some great sales on eyewear and sales on bullets. I mean, they have some bullets, so it's worth checking every single day. I'm Michael Bain. You can, of course, find Triggered on michaelbain.tv. You can also find us on YouTube. And when you find us on YouTube, push the big red subscribe button. And we will see you next week.